Hi and very welcome back to all of you. Today in the unit of pteridophytes, we are going to learn about the life history of Equisetum. Equisetum belongs to class Phenopsida, and this class Phenopsida has four orders that we had understood in the classification. Of those four orders, we are going to learn about Equisetals, which has Equisetum as the genus. This Equisetum is a living fossil because this is the only surviving member of class Sphenopsida. So last time we had just understood about Xylotum. So Xylotum is also a living fossil. So likewise Equisetum is also a living fossil, and we are going to understand about it today in more detail. So we start with the understanding of its classification. So as it is pteridophyte, it falls under the division of Pteridophyta. So Pteridophyta, as we know, are cryptogams, that is seedless plants, but they have very well developed vascular system and they have presence of root, stem and leaves. And then comes the class Sphenopsida. Now this class has presence of root, stem and leaves, and the very important characteristics is the presence of nodes and internodes. So the stem has presence of nodes and internodes, and we are going to learn about it in more detail. So the order is Equisetals. Equisetals has characteristics, that is the plant body is differentiated into root, stem and leaves. The stem that is present are branched, that also we will look into it when we learn about the plant body. It is branched and it has presence of distinct nodes and internodes. Leaves are small, scaly and in whorls. So leaves are present in whorls, and there is sporangia present. Sporangia is borne on the sporangiophore, the structure that bears sporangia, and the spores present are homosporous, that is all of the spores are of the same type. So then comes the family Equisetaceae. So this order has one single family, which is Equisetaceae. So since it is the only family, it will have all the characteristics of the order, which is Equisetales. And then comes the genus. So there are in all two genus in Equisetaceae. This is Equisetum and Equisetites. But Equisetum is the only living member, whereas Equisetites is extinct. So we are going to learn about the genus Equisetum, which is living, and it has 30 species all over the world, distributed all over the world, and these are commonly known as horsetail or scoring rushes. Okay, so why is it called horsetail? Because the branch looks like the tail of a horse, therefore it is called horsetail. And it is called scoring rushes because this plant has deposition of silica over its stem. So when the silica deposits over its stem, that is over the epidermal layer of the stem, so the stem looks very rough. The stem actually becomes very rough because of the deposition of silica. So this just acts like a sandpaper. You know what is sandpaper? Sandpaper is the paper with which we rub something to make it smooth, to make it polished, right? So this stem of Equisetum, because of the deposition of silica, looks rough, becomes rough, and therefore it acts like sandpaper. So in olden times, these were used as a sandpaper for polishing surfaces, right? So therefore it is called scoring rushes, where scoring means rubbing with an abrasive material. So when we use some rough material which is capable of polishing certain surface, then it is called scoring. So these are called scoring rushes because of that reason. So then it has presence of spores, and the spores have presence of elaters. We will look into the structure of spores later on. So these are the characteristic of equisetum. Okay, so and these are distributed all over the world, as I told before. So since many species are present all over the world, we will look into some of these species. And see, all of these species, the characteristic of equisetum is that they are present in varied type of habitats. So yeah, we can see equisetum in various habitats. So for example, equisetum praetens can be found in damp and shady places. Equisetum paluster can be found in marshy places, ponds, or near river banks, right? And Equisetum arvens has xerophytic habitat, which you can find near roadside or railway tracks, right? So like this, there is variation in the habitat of Equisetum. So it can grow even in marshy areas, even in damp shady areas, and even in xerophytic habitat. So some of the common Indian species that we need to know are Equisetum arvens, Equisetum debile, Equisetum diffusum, Equisetum ramosissimum, and Equisetum elongatum. Of these species, Equisetum arvens is common in western Himalayan regions, right? Whereas Equisetum debile can be found in the plains along the river banks. So debile is a species belonging to plains, whereas arvens is a species belonging to western Himalayan regions, right? So at least you can remember some of this species name and the ones that have been mentioned in terms of where they can be seen, right? So now we move towards the understanding of life history of Equisetum. So the life history of Equisetum we are going to understand in 4 parts. That is, first we are going to understand external morphology, then we will understand the internal structure of its parts, that is stem and root, rhizome, right? So we'll understand the internal structure, and then later on we will look into the reproduction part, and then lastly we will understand the life cycle. So today in this lecture we are going to cover external morphology and internal structure of Equisetum. The rest, that is reproduction and life cycle, we will be taking in the next lecture. So we right now start with the understanding of its external morphology. So this is the plant of Equisetum, right? And the plant body that you can see is a sporophyte. So it is a sporophytic plant body where you can see the presence of sporangia over the sporangiophore. So it is a sporophytic plant body. Now the main stem is actually the rhizome, right? So this is the rhizome. This brown part that you see is the rhizome. This is the main stem. This is underground creeping and perennial rhizome. So perennial rhizome means rhizome which can survive for several years. So that's why we call it a perennial rhizome. It is creeping because it creeps in the surface, and it is underground. It is usually present below the ground to some meters, right? So this is the main stem, the rhizome, right? This is the main stem, and this then gives rise to the roots and the stem, that is the aerial shoot, right? So this, as I told, can be found more than a meter below the surface of the soil. And so this is the rhizome. These are the roots, and this rhizome gives rise to the aerial shoots, right? So these are the aerial shoots, the above ground part, right? So these aerial shoots are of two types. So rhizome gives rise to two types of aerial shoots. These are vegetative shoot and fertile shoot, right? So vegetative shoot and fertile shoot are different. Vegetative shoot has the presence of only leaves and branches, whereas the fertile shoot will have the presence of sporangia, which is a reproductive organ. But it depends upon different species, like how this arrangement is present. For example, as I told, in Equisetum hyemale, the vegetative shoot and the fertile shoot are different. So vegetative shoots are usually branched. These are green and photosynthetic, whereas the fertile shoot, these are unbranched and non-photosynthetic, right? And these terminate into sporangia. So this is in Equisetum hyemale. Likewise, in another species, which is Equisetum paluster, so what will happen, that the fertile shoots, as they will complete the process of dispersal of spores, so as soon as the spores will be dispersed, we know that sporangia will not be useful anymore. So the sporangia will disintegrate, and then this fertile shoot will convert itself into vegetative shoot by producing branches on this fertile shoot. So later on the fertile shoot can become vegetative shoot. Example of this is Equisetum paluster. And another variation is that in some species there is no differentiation of vegetative and fertile shoot. So all of the aerial shoots will give rise to sporangia. So an example of this is Equisetum debile and Equisetum diffusum. So in different species there is different arrangement present, but this is a general understanding of the plant body, right? So there are vegetative shoot and fertile shoots. Vegetative shoot have branches and leaves present, whereas the fertile shoot has the presence of sporangia. Now this rhizome as well as this shoot have nodes and internodes. So internodes and nodes are present both in the rhizome and also in the aerial shoot, right? And also whorls of leaves are present at each node. So even in the rhizome there is presence of whorls of leaves, and also in the aerial shoot there is present leaves. So these that you see are actually not leaves. We will understand this right now. Now this is the vegetative shoot, as I told. So this vegetative shoot has presence of lateral branches. So branches that arise from the node and the axil of leaf are called lateral branches. So these that you see are actually lateral branches that is arising from the nodal area, right? So these are lateral branches and not the leaves. Leaves are hidden inside, like because of the presence of this lateral branch we cannot see the leaves actually. So leaves are very small and scaly, and these that you see are the lateral branches. These are present in whorl in the nodal region, right? So but one thing that we can relate is that the whorls of leaves at each node corresponds to the whorls of lateral branches. So that means that depending upon the number of leaves, if there are 5 leaves then the branches would be 5, if there are 10 leaves then the branches would be 10. So this is like, we can say that the number of leaves and the number of lateral branches in a node is always equal. So both of these correspond with each other, right? So these are lateral branches. Now these lateral branches, very important point to understand is that these lateral branches have two types of branching further. that is, one is the branches of unlimited growth and the other is the branches of limited growth. So as I told, these are the lateral branches, right? So these lateral branches can have two types of branches. One is branches of unlimited growth. So as the name suggests, this is a branch of unlimited growth because this lateral branch will further grow into will further lead to more branching, like the vegetative shoot. So similarly, like the vegetative shoot, a lateral branch from here will rise and this will further lead to more branching, which is unlimited. So that means that the branching here is unlimited. One lateral branch gives rise to further branches to give the appearance of a vegetative shoot. So it grows like a vegetative shoot. Whereas the branches of limited growth are this that we see, the needle like things. So these are branches of limited growth because these are not growing to grow anymore. That is, these are not going to give out branches. So these will not give out branches. This will remain as it is. But this also has nodes and internodes. As you can see, these structures, these small structures, these are nodes and in between it is internode. So there is presence of nodes and internodes, but these are not going to have any further branching, whereas the branches of unlimited growth will have further branching and will give rise to more branching, right? So these also have nodes and internodes, and these, the limited ones, also have nodes and internodes, but these do not branch, whereas the branches of unlimited growth will branch, right? So as I told, there is no further branching in the branches of limited growth, and these structures that you see are tubers, right? So what happens, sometimes rhizome from the node will give rise to these tubers. Tubers are perinating organ, right? So what is a perinating organ? Perinating organ is something that can survive one season to another because of unfavorable conditions. So these tubers are organs that can survive unfavorable condition, and later on, when favorable conditions will be available, this will germinate into a new plant, right? So therefore this is a perinating organ which can germinate on the return of favorable condition, and this is formed from the node of rhizome. Even the aerial shoots, these are formed from the node of the rhizome, right? So this is, I think, clear with you about the external morphology of the plant, where the main stem is the rhizome. From the rhizome, aerial shoots arise and tubers arise and roots arise. So the rhizome and aerial shoot both have nodes and internodes, and this rhizome, it gives rise to two types of shoot, vegetative and fertile. Vegetative has branches, whereas fertile has sporangia present, and vegetative shoot has lateral branches also present, and these lateral branches can be of two types: branches of unlimited growth, this one, and the branches of limited growth, right? So this is about the external morphology. But now we need to understand about the structure of nodes and internode, right? So as I told, the stem as well as the rhizome has the presence of nodes and internodes. So this is an equisetum plant. As you can see, these structures that you can see, these are the lateral branches. The leaves are present here at the node. These are very minute. So you can see the leaves here in the figure. These small structures that you see are the leaves. These are minute and scaly, but are present in whorls. Similarly, these are also present in whorls, the lateral branches. The green structures that you are seeing are the lateral branches. These are present in whorls and corresponds to the number of leaves, right? And This is also lateral branch. As I told, this is a more magnified view. From the node we can see that lateral branches, they come out in whorls, right? So this is the internode and this is the node. As you can see here also, the center portion is the internode and this is the node from where the lateral branches arise, and at the node itself the leaves are present. So now you can relate this figure with the following illustrations. So this is the structure of an aerial stem, a part of it, where we can see this is the node and this is the internode. So between two nodes, the part that is present is internode. So this internode in equisetum is hollow, right? So this central portion is hollow from inside. There is nothing much present, it is hollow. It is like a hollow cavity. But these have presence of longitudinal ridges and grooves, right? So as you can see, there is presence of grooves here and these are ridges. So you need to know what are grooves and ridges. Grooves are, as you can see in the figure, this dark line that I have shown is groove. So grooves are depressions, right, are dents, whereas this is the ridges. So ridges are like hilltop, these are bulged, these are heighted, right? So when I say ridges you can remember mountains, and when I say grooves you can remember valleys, right? So this is the depression is valley and the ridges is mountain. So groove is a depression, whereas ridge is a raised area, right? So there is presence of ridges and grooves in the internodes. Then leaves, these are minute, scaly and isophilous. So these are the leaves, this small structure, these pointed structures that you are seeing are the leaves. These leaves are minute, scaly and isophilous, right? So isophilous means that all of the leaves are of the same size and shape. So these are isophilous. Now these leaves, they arise in the nodes. As you can see, this is the nodal region and from the node the leaves are arising. So leaves are present both in rhizome and in stem. This is my mistake, I had to write both in rhizome and stem, right? So these nodes, leaves are present in nodes and the nodes are present in both rhizome and stem. Okay, so then another thing to understand is that this is the distal part of the leaf and this is the base of the leaf, right? So the distal end is frill like means it is like a gathered pleat. In some clothes also we see frill, right? So this is frill like, and the base is a sheath. So this is the sheathing leaf base, the basal area. So what is actually sheathing leaf base? It is the leaf base is actually petiole, but in many plants what happens that the leaf base is broad and it surrounds the stem as an envelope, so you cannot differentiate it. The leaf base is present, petiole is present, but it is actually surrounding the whole stem. So this is broad and it surrounds the whole stem like an envelope, and therefore it is called sheathing leaf base, right? So the leaf at the distal end has frill like appearance, whereas at the base has a sheathing leaf base, as I have marked here, right? So we cannot differentiate, but sheathing leaf base is present here, which is a part of the leaf, right? So this is about the structure of nodes and internodes, about the aerial stem, and also even in rhizome the same structure is present, except for some minor changes which we are going to understand in the internal structure, right? So okay, one more thing to understand is that depending upon the degree of fusion of leaves, that is how leaves fuse with each other, and depending upon the number of leaves, um, different species have different variations. So there is variation depending upon these two factors, even in different species and even in the same species, maybe depending upon the climate. So this kind of variation can be found depending upon these two characters. Now in those species that have narrow stem, there would be less leaves present, but in those species that have broad stem, there would be more leaves present. Now the main function of leaf in Equisetum is not photosynthetic, but it is to protect the branch buds at the nodes. See, as I told that from the node branches arise, lateral branches arise, right? So there are branch buds present which will give rise to branches here. So the main function of this small leaves is to protect the branch buds. So whatever branch buds are present here, that would be protected by these leaves. So leaves are very small and they are actually non-photosynthetic, so they are not going to perform the work of photosynthesis, but most of the work of photosynthesis is actually performed by the aerial shoot, right? Because the aerial shoot is photosynthetic, it has chlorophyllous cells present which performs the function of photosynthesis. So I think this is clear with the understanding of nodes and internodes. Now we move towards the understanding of internal structure. So we understood the external morphology, and now we look into the internal structure, first of all of the aerial shoot. So this is the figure of the internal structure of aerial shoot. This is the internal structure of internode region, and this is also the same thing, but this is a transverse section, this is cellular, and this is transverse section of the aerial shoot. So both of these are the same things. We will understand this with labelings, right? So now this is the cuticle, the outermost covering present is the cuticle, and below the cuticle is present epidermis, right? So epidermis has the presence of silica. There is very heavy coating of silica present, as I told. This silica actually helps also in support, and also this makes the surface rough, because of which it can survive better because of it becoming rough from outside, right? So silica is mainly for also support. Actually many species of Equisetum are considered as indicators of minerals. Many of Equisetum species are known to like absorb gold from the soil, so they many species have gold deposition also. Likewise this Equisetum mainly has a deposition of silica. So because of the presence of silica, the surface of the stem is very rough, right? So and silica provides mechanical strength. Now this epidermis is interrupted by very small these structures that we call as stomata, right? So stomata is present in the grooves. So as I told, there are grooves and ridges. So this ray structure is ridges, and this depression, the structure with depression is grooves. So stomata are present in grooves and not in ridges, right? So we are going to understand about this structure of stomata in more detail in the next slide. So as you can see here, there are guard cells present. This is the orange part is the substomatal cavity, that is cavity below the stomata, and this is the epistomatal cavity, that is cavity above the stomata. Right, we will understand this in more detail. Now as I told, these are the guard cells. See, this same things, this same labeling I am doing here also. This is the transverse section, and this that you see is a part of this section, right? A part of this is this, and this is cellular, but this is not cellular. So a part of this is taken to magnify and make you understand, right? So same labelings will go in both of these structures. So here there is cuticle present, epidermis is present, so here also there is epidermis. Now there is presence of cortex also, right? So the cortex is divided into two parts. One is the outer cortex and one is the inner cortex. So the outer cortex comprises of two types of cells. One is sclerenchymatous cell. The brown part that you see are the sclerenchymatous cell, and the green part that you see are the chlorenchyma cell or the palisade cells. Right, so as I told, the aerial shoot performs the function of photosynthesis. So this chlorenchyma cells help in the process of photosynthesis, and sclerenchyma does the work of mechanical support. So as you can see, sclerenchyma is present here also. This brown part is sclerenchyma and this green part is chlorenchyma, right? So this performs photosynthesis. This sclerenchyma is present more in the region of ridges, and it is present less in the region of grooves, and actually it is totally absent below the stomata, right? So this comprises the outer cortex, which has sclerenchyma and chlorenchyma. Now the next is inner cortex. This blue part is parenchyma. So inner cortex comprises of parenchyma, and the inner cortex also has presence of a very typical canals. These are canals. The cavity that you see are known as vallicular canals, right? So these two structures are vallicular canals. These are present in the inner cortex along with the parenchyma. These are canals that extend throughout the length of the internode. So it is present as a pipe throughout the internode, and it forms a distinct aerating system. So this vallicular canal conducts air, right? So there is air present in vallicular canal. So remember that vallicular canals are an aerating system, right? So this is about inner cortex, which has presence of parenchyma and vallicular canal. Now this, okay, so this same thing you can see here also. These round structures that you see are vallicular canals, and the blue part is parenchyma. So now you can relate that we have just taken a section of this. We have just taken a section, right? So this is the section of like a very small section of this transverse section of aerial shoot that we have kept here. So we have taken a section which has two vallicular canals, this, right, and it has the this upper part is also included, right? So this is about inner cortex. Now this cortex is separated from the steely region by the presence of endodermis. So this orange part that you see is the endodermis, right? And endodermis is followed by a single layer of pericycle. Now there is one more thing that we need to understand about endodermis is the arrangement of endodermal layer in different species. We will understand this in more detail in the next slide, and also we are going to understand about stomata in more detail about in the next slide, right? So endodermis is followed by a single layer of pericycle. Pericycle, as we know, are capable of dividing for growth, right? And then is present the stele. So this is the stellar region. The stele is siphonostele. Siphonostele means around a large pith there are vascular bundles present, and this number equals to the number of ridges. So the vascular bundles that are present actually corresponds to the number of ridges. So whatever the number of ridges are there, that much vascular bundles would be present. So you can see here in the figure, this is the ridge, this is the vascular bundle, this is the ridge, this is the vascular bundle, right? So the number corresponds to the number of ridges. So now the stele has protoxylem and metaxylem. This is protoxylem and this is metaxylem. So protoxylem, as we know, are the first part of primary xylem. These are formed first and these are smaller, whereas metaxylem are formed after the protoxylem and these are larger, right? So this protoxylem you can see here and these are metaxylem. Very less xylem is present actually in equisetum, right? And then this structure that you see is the phloem, right? So this is the phloem. Xylem is the water conducting part and phloem is the what we say, food conducting part, right? So this is phloem. And then after, okay, one very important thing to understand is about carinal canal, right? So this is carinal canal. Carinal canal is present near protoxylem, right? And it is radially opposite to a ridge. So as you can see, this is a ridge and this is the carinal canal. So wherever ridge is present, there carinal canal is present, because as you can see, it is actually present in at the end of the vascular bundles. So this is the carinal canal and this is the ridge. So it is present opposite to the ridge, and therefore ridges are actually also called as carina, and therefore this canal is called carinal canal, right? So this carinal canal is arranged on inner side of vascular bundle, and this carinal canal is mainly for the conduction of water, right? So sometimes what happens that this protoxylem, this will totally disintegrate and this will form a protoxylem lacuna, right? And what is lacuna? Lacuna is an empty space. So protoxylem disintegrate, due to which an empty space is formed, and this empty space is called carinal canal. So this is called protoxylem lacuna, because this is a empty space formed by the disintegration of protoxylem. So the work of xylem is done here by carinal canal. So these two canals are different. This is vallecular canal which conducts air, and this is carinal canal which conducts water, right? So and then follows a very large pith cavity. Pith, I have not shown it here clearly, but after the completion of these vascular bundles immediately follows the pith region. So this is the pith region. It is also a large cavity, so you can see here also. So both of these structures are same. This is the internal structure of aerial chute. This is just a part cellular of this transverse section that you are seeing. So the two main important things here to understand is vallecular canal and carinal canal, right? Vallecular canal is aerating system and carinal canal is water conducting system, right? So this is about the internal structure of aerial chute in the internode. So this is about the internodal area, and this is very interesting because here you can find a combination of both hydrophytic and xerophytic characters. We are going to understand about what are the different hydrophytic and xerophytic characters present in equisetum. But right now just you can remember this, that there are combination of hydrophytic and xerophytic characters. Now we understand, as I told, about the structure of stomata. So this is the stoma in vertical section. Now this stomata is actually arranged in two tiers having two cells, right? So each of these tiers, there are two tiers present, the lower tier and the upper tier, and each of this tier has two cells. Like this, there are four cells present. So this is the upper tier, right, which has subsidiary and accessory cells, and this is the lower tier which has guard cells present. This is the cavity below stoma, which is called substomatal cavity, and this cavity above stoma is called epistomatal cavity, right? So we know what is the work of guard cells. It helps in opening and closing of stomata, and the work of subsidiary cells is to support the guard cells and protect the guard cells, right? So this is about the structure of stoma. These green structures are the epidermis, and below the stoma is somewhat sclerenchymatous cells. Now this is the representation of thickening bands in stoma. So these two are subsidiary cells. This is the stoma, the opening, and this is the guard cells, and this thickenings that you see are the thickening bands. What you need to know is that these thickening bands are of silica material, right? As I told that the epidermis has deposition of silica, so these bands that you see are of silica, and this is actually present in the subsidiary cell, right? But it appears as if it is arising from the stomata. So it is present in the subsidiary cell, but it looks like it arises from the stoma. So these are the thickening bands of silica, right? Now, as I told, we need to also look into the difference in endodermal layer in different species. So let us understand it with this diagram. So as you can see, this is the same diagram that we just saw before, right? These are the grooves, these are the ridges, this is the cortex region, this is vallicular canal, and this is endodermis. So in this figure you can see that there is only one outer endodermal layer present. So there is only one outer endodermis. An example of this species is Equisetum arvens. Now the another example of different type of endodermal layer is this, where you can see that there are two endodermal layer present. This is the outer endodermal layer and this is the inner endodermal layer. So there is presence of outer and inner layer. An example of this is Equisetum debile, right? And the last one is like an individual endodermal layer is present around each vascular bundle, right? So this is like a totally separate endodermal layer. So an example of this is Equisetum limosium, right? So I hope this difference is clear. In one there is only single outer endodermal layer, in another there are two layers, an outer and an inner, and in the third one there is single endodermal layer present around like each vascular bundle. So this type of endodermal layer is considered to be primitive and this type is considered to be advanced, right? So this is about the difference in endodermis. Now we understand that there is also difference in structure of both nodes and internodes. As I told, there is a structural difference between the internode and node. So this is the figure of internode that we already learned before, and this is the transverse section of aerial shoot through nodes, right? So there are some things same, but there are some things that are different. So I think now you are clear with the understanding of internode. It has epidermis, clarenchyma, chlorenchyma, cortex, inner cortex, right? Parenchyma, vallicular canal, endodermis, pericycle, vascular bundle having xylem, phloem, and carinal canal, and with pith, right? So this is about internode. So I am going to make you understand about what is present there in node. So the thing here to understand is that the pith present in node is not hollow. If you remember, I told that the internodes are hollow because of the presence of all these canals and because of the presence of a large pith. The internode is hollow, but here the pith is not hollow. But what is present? There is the presence of a nodal diaphragm. So this is a nodal diaphragm. Now you must be thinking that what is a nodal diaphragm? So nodal diaphragm is actually a densely cytoplasmic, thin-walled and nucleated cells that is present here, right? So it is filled with all of cytoplasmic thin-walled nucleated cells. The reason that this is present in the node is because as I told, internode is hollow, so node cannot be hollow, because if node also becomes hollow, then there will be no support system. So this nodal diaphragm actually acts as a spring like joint, right? So this acts like a joint which actually increases the effectiveness or stiffness of the stem, right? So whenever there will be like air blowing, or whenever there will be bending pressure, so this node will help the plant from not breaking. So this is the work of nodal diaphragm, which is very important, because if this is hollow, then the plant will not stand properly. So there is present nodal diaphragm. So this is absent in internode. Now another thing difference that we need to know is vascular cylinder. Vasculature is present in both internode and node, but as you can see here, vascular bundles were present, but in node all of these actually unite to form vascular cylinder. So this is vascular cylinder. Vasculature is present, but it is a vascular cylinder because of the fusion of all the vascular bundles, whereas there is individual vascular bundle present in internode. Now another important things that we need to know about node is there is presence of leaf traces and branch traces. So these are leaf traces, and these the larger ones are branch traces and the smaller ones are leaf traces, right? So what are these leaf traces and branch traces? If you remember, I told that from the nodal region the leaf as well as the branch arise, right? So the trace, there will be a leaf traces present because this is the area from where leaf arise and this is the area from where branch arise, right? So the traces of both of these can be seen here, and both of these actually arise from the vascular cylinder, right? So all of these have their origin from vascular cylinder, because leaf and branch, both of these require vasculature for conduction of water and food, right? So therefore they arise from vascular cylinder. And another thing to note about node is that there is absence of vallicular canal and carinal canal. So a very important difference is that in internode there were vallicular canal and carinal canals present, but in the node there is no vallicular and carinal canal that you can see. So this is also a very big difference. So there is no vallicular or carinal canal. There are leaf traces and branch traces present. There is vascular cylinder present in place of vascular bundle, and there is nodal diaphragm present, which provides the required stiffness and support to the stem. Right? So this is the difference in the structure of internode and node. Now we understand the internal structure of rhizome. And again, if you remember, I had told that the rhizome and the aerial shoot, both of these have nodes and internodes present. So their structure would be almost same, except for some differences that we need to see. So there is epidermis present, right? Then epidermis is without stomata, right? Since it is a rhizome, it is an underground part. It does not require stomata because underground there is no requirement of stomata for gaseous exchange, right, and for loss of water and all, right? So there is no stomata present here. Then there is sclerenchyma layer present, the same way as it was present in the internal structure of aerial shoot. This is for mechanical support. There is cortex region present, that is the parenchyma region present, but you can see that there is one thing missing, that is chlorenchyma, right? I had told that the aerial shoot comprises of two types of cells, sclerenchyma and chlorenchyma, but this is not aerial shoot, this is rhizome. Rhizome has nothing to do with photosynthesis, and therefore chlorenchyma is absent here, right? So chlorenchyma is absent, and there is very less sclerenchyma present, right? Sclerenchyma is present, but it is less present since it is rhizome. So it has not to stand like an aerial shoot, right? Therefore less sclerenchyma is present. And there is endodermis followed by a single layer pericycle. Then there are also vallicular canals, and there are also carinal canals, but both of these are very narrow. So carinal canal and vallicular canal both are narrow in case of rhizome, though they are present. And these are the vascular bundles with a central pith. So for those who are not being able to differentiate between rhizome and root, actually I had cleared it before only, but again I would like to make it clear that this underground part that you see is actually the main stem. This is the perennial rhizome, and from this rhizome roots arise, right? So this internal structure is about this rhizome, and we already saw the internal structure of this aerial shoot, right? And now we are going to understand about the internal structure of this root, right? So we move towards the understanding of internal structure of root. This is very simple, and you'll be able to understand it very fast. So this is the epidermis, the outer layer, and each of these epidermal layer gives out an outgrowth which is called root hair. So this is root hair, this is epidermis, or also known as epiblemma. So in root you can name epidermis as epiblemma. There is sclerenchyma present, the mechanical support system, and this is outer cortex actually, and therefore it is also called exodermis. The outer cortex, which comprises of sclerenchyma, is called exodermis. This is the inner cortex, which is parenchyma cells. Now this is the endodermal layer which separates the cortex from the stele. So the very important feature of equisetum in its root structure is the presence of two endodermal layers. You can see that there are two endodermal layer present, one this one and the another this one, right? So there are two endodermal layers present. So the outer endodermal layer is larger and it has presence of Casparian strip, whereas the inner endodermal layer is smaller and it has no Casparian strip present, right? And also from the inner layer lateral roots arises, right? So this is the main point to understand about the root of equisetum, where endodermis has two layers, outer endodermal layer and inner endodermal layer, right? Then one more important point, pericycle is absent. So there is no pericycle after endodermis in the root of equisetum. Now the stele is protostele and there is xylem present, which may be diarch or tetrarch. So diarch means two strands of xylem, tetrarch means four strands of xylem. So xylem could be two stranded, three stranded or four stranded. So these are the xylem, the red ones, and the center that you see is metaxylem and around it the small ones are the protoxylem. And this is the phloem, which is present surrounding the xylem or in between the xylem strands. So it appears like the the phloem is present between the xylem strands, right? So this is it about the internal structure of root. This is very simple. Only thing that you need to remember is about the two endodermal layers and about the absence of pericycle, and that the epidermis can be called epiblema and the outer cortex is called exodermis. But these two are the main important point. So also you need to know that as the diameter of the root increases, there will be increase in the xylem strand. So larger the diameter of root, more the increase in xylem strands. Now the last thing for today's lecture that we need to understand is about the difference between xerophytic character and hydrophytic characters. That is, which are the xerophytic characters that equisetum represent and which are the hydrophytic characters that equisetum shows. So the very first xerophytic characters is the presence of ridges and grooves. These ridges and grooves are very important to provide support to the plant. Then the epidermal cell has silica deposition. So as I told, because of the deposition of silica, the surface of the stem looks very rough. It looks like a xerophytic character, and because of silica deposition it has good support available. Then there is presence of sunken stomata. So what is sunken stomata? It is actually present very beneath the epidermis, and this is because the xerophytes have to reduce the water loss, and to reduce the water loss the stomata is sunken. So this is the characteristic of xerophytes. There is well developed sclerenchyma hypodermis. So there is more sclerenchyma hypodermis present because sclerenchyma provides mechanical support. So xerophytes require good mechanical support, so therefore there is more sclerenchyma present. The leaves are reduced. Why the leaves are reduced? Because leaves are reduced to reduce the process of transpiration. If more leaf area would be available, then there would be more transpiration, and therefore to reduce this loss the leaves are scaly. And we can find chlorenchyma in stem. Since leaves are small, so some part has to perform the process of photosynthesis. So this is performed by the presence of chlorenchyma in stem, and they have a well developed vascular cylinder to conduct water and food, right? So these are the list of xerophytic characters that equisetum has, which reflects its adaptation to xerophytic characters as xerophytic habitat as well. And now let us look into hydrophytic characters. There is presence of aerating system and central pit cavity. So what is the aerating system? It is the presence of vallicular canal. There is vallicular canal present and central pit cavity present, which acts as aerating system. So hydrophytes, if you know, have a good aerating system, right, since they are present inside the water. And they have very reduced xylem. We saw it in the structure of aerial shoot that there is reduced xylem. Only few tracheids of protoxylem and metaxylem were visible. So when there is reduced xylem, it means that the plant does not require much water, because hydrophytes have less xylem because they grow in water, right? So therefore equisetum is having reduced xylem, which reflects to the characteristics of hydrophytes. So these characters reflect towards its adaptation to hydrophytic habitat, and this reflects towards its adaptation to xerophytic habitats. And as I told before, that equisetum is can grow in various kinds of habitat like damp, shady, marshy. So these characters become useful to equisetum in surviving such habitats, right? So this is it we keep for today's lecture. We will continue from where we left, right, in the next lecture. So you people can clear your doubts regarding this, and if you have any question, please feel free to ask me. We will continue the next part, that is the reproduction and life cycle of equisetum, in the next lecture, right? So, and if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and do hit the bell icon. Okay, thank you.